Hello there. This video is to help you with step 2 of the activity investigating lead in Vermont schools. And again, the whole point of this is to help you get a better sense of the situation of lead contamination in schools around the state of Vermont. In class, we will have worked through Winooski already and completed this part of the data table. You're going to resubmit this same Google Doc with the work you're going to do on your own for either one or two schools in Vermont. And again, I'd encourage you to try to do two. It'll give you better skills with data analysis, using spreadsheets, and reasoning scientifically through this environmental pollution or contamination problem. Using spreadsheets too, this is a great skill to have if you're in business, finance, any kind of activity that you have to manage information. All right. You'll notice before we get started, I've opened up two screens, or two windows, I should say. The one on the right is the data that we'll have downloaded, and I'm using Winooski, the data we downloaded in class, as an example. And on the left, I have the assignment. So let's click on this Google Sheet, and we're going to clean up the data first, or data. You can say it either way. And that's going to help us answer some of these questions more easily. You're going to need to count the total number of samples, find how many are above 4 parts per billion, figure out the percentage of those that are above this level. This is the safety standard, meaning if it's above 4 parts per million, that's bad. That's an amount we don't want. We're going to figure out the range in values. That's an indicator we can use to compare different schools. All of these you can use to compare and reason through how different schools are doing. We're going to figure out the average and talk about that. The average is kind of the central value in a range of numbers. You might know averages from sports. They use that statistic all the time in sports. And lastly, we're going to make a graph, and you're going to literally paste your graph right in these boxes, just like we hopefully have done in class. Okay, so here's our data again for Winooski. Just to remind you, there's more stuff in there in each cell than what you can see. There's a bigger description up here in this information bar. We're going to really be focused on these two columns of data where they have the lead concentrations. And one thing we have to do, scientists do this all the time, is clean up data or reformat data. You'll notice in here, they've put the concentrations, the parts per billion, after each value. And that's going to be a little bit of a problem later on when we try to do some calculations, because the computer, we're going to use the computer to help us, is going to think that that part per billion is like a word, and you can't do calculations on words. So we're going to get rid of that. And there's a super fast way to do that with a computer. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. Up under Edit, you're going to drop down to Find and Replace. And we're going to tell the computer to find every place where the letters ppb, or parts per billion, exist. And then you click Replace With, and you just leave it. You don't touch anything, you don't type anything. And then down here below, we're going to say replace all of those. And look, right here it says replace 23 instances with blank. So if we close this out and go back, you'll have seen the difference. Where there used to be ppb, now that's all gone. And we can undo that just so you can see it. That's what it was before. If we redo that step, we've taken it all out. And you'll notice these numbers, where they used to be over here on the left, and do that one more time. Now they're over on the right, and that's what we want. That's telling the computer, now the computer realizes these are numbers. Computers really aren't that smart. It still thinks these are words or characters of some sort because of this less than sign. And since we know less than 1 is almost 0 in this case, less than 1 parts per billion, we're going to just call that 0. So let's go back to our find and replace. We're going to tell the program to look for every place that says less than 1. And this time we're going to say replace that with a 0. And we'll replace all of those, close that, and voila, look at that. All of those ugly less than 1 are gone. Nice, clean looking data. And now you can use the computer to really help you. It can calculate things, it can plot things. So when you go through here for your school, like if you pick, McNally's, whatever school it is, McNally's University or McNally High School, you can complete the rest of these analyses. The one I want to draw your attention to, again, is average. Average is, again, the middle value, and I can show you how we could calculate that here. We're going to type in average on your spreadsheet just so you can figure out where to do it. And we're going to use Google Sheets to do the calculation. We're going to type equal sign. And look at that. As soon as you type that in, the computer is suggesting some things to do. You could add up all the values, or you could average them. So click on or type in average, and you have to use a open parentheses. And then it's asking you to tell the computer which numbers you want to average. So you go back up here, click on the 5, and drag, hold the cursor down and drag to the last number you want, and put a close parentheses around it. Now, if you read that, it says average E2 to E13. So it's pretty easy. You can look at column E, row 2, that's the first number, colon sign, that means everything from E2 to E13. And here's E13 down here. And then you just hit enter, and voila, it just cranks out that average literally in a second. So in the old days, you had to use a calculator, type in each number, add it to the previous number, and then divide all of those, 12 numbers, I think. Add up the sums of each one and then divide it by 12. Computer makes it really easy. You can go back in here like we did in class and say the average is 0.75 parts per billion. You got to tell it that. All right. Let's do the last one real quick, making a graph. This is something you can also use computer for, a Google Sheet. We're interested in the taps for now. So you could highlight, click on the word tap, and you're going to drag your cursor down while you're holding down the control pad. And you're identifying all the taps in the school you want to analyze. If you press the control key and then also click on first draw, you can drag all those down, and that might be the most interesting data to look at. You could also just click on tap and pull it all at once. And then we're going to go to insert, click on that, and insert a chart. Chart is the language Google Sheets uses. And if you've done this before, this is a great review. If not, I hope you're able to use this. It should, take a little moment, thinks it out, and then it starts to graph it. It's a little ugly right now because it's giving you some things it would like you to do. So you can go to customize on the side, and you could give it some titles. We go to the chart title. Again, this is Winooski High School lead data. It's going to be the title. And then you see as I type it, it shows up here. You can also go back and put the different horizontal or x-axis title and the vertical axis title. So we know on the left here, the vertical axis, these are the concentrations. So I'm going to do that first. That was lead concentration, parentheses, that's in parts per billion. And then you hit enter, puts it in there. Then we have to do the x-axis or horizontal axis. And then we know those were just water taps, or you could call them water locations. You could come up with a different name. There you go. When you finished editing that, you close it out. You have a nice graph here. You can move it out of the way of your data so it's not covering up your data. You can see it more easily. And then the last step, let's paste that in. If you click on these three dots, it allows you to copy the chart. So copy that. And then you can go back to here, your data table, and under edit, you can hit paste. It'll remember what you just pasted, and it's saying, do you want to link it? I always think that's good. That means if you did a mistake, if you go back and change it over here on the right and correct something, it'll automatically update that. So just hit paste, and there it is in there. And I can make that bigger. I can check it out and grade it and look at it. So there you go. That's how you can do some basic data analysis in a Google spreadsheet.